Chosen one, welcome, radiant ones. Look around for a moment. You didn't just happen to show up here. You were called. There's nothing ordinary about you. And don't you dare let the noise of the world convince you otherwise. You are not just a face in the crowd, not just another body in the room. You are a force, a spark, a story unfolding in real time. And everyone who encounters you can feel it, whether they can put it into words or not. When you walk into a space, you bring more than yourself. You bring possibility. You bring depth. You bring a reminder to everyone around you of what's real. You may not always see it, but trust me, their spirits notice. The atmosphere shifts because you're carrying something unique, something only you can deliver to this world. So tonight, let yourself own that. Stand tall in it. You are not here to shrink. You are not here to apologize for your light. You are here to ignite something in yourself, in others, in this very moment. Welcome, beloved. You are exactly where you're meant to be. And the world has been waiting for what only you can bring, looking for purpose and peace. Hit subscribe and start the journey. There exists an unteachable presence, a kind of quiet electricity that bends the air around it. It does not announce itself, yet alters everything it touches, like a current moving invisibly through water. There's no rehearsal for this, no instruction manual to download, no switch to flip. Some forces are simply born into the world, carrying an essence that cannot be borrowed, replicated, or sold. Rather than tracing someone else's footsteps, this presence invents its own pathways. Others spend their days stitching themselves into patterns that don't belong to them, trying desperately to mirror what seems acceptable. But here, something entirely different unfolds, not a reflection, but a spark that seems to have been plucked from some timeless forge. Not crafted, but discovered. It feels strange to people at first because it neither conforms to nor resists expectation. It just is. When it enters a space, the atmosphere subtly adjusts, like a strange gravity asserting itself. No words need to be spoken. Even in silence, it hums, vibrating on a frequency that bypasses logic and speaks directly to the marrow. Those nearby feel something stir in them, a faint ache of something forgotten, an unnameable tension, a flicker of recognition that both unsettles and awakens. Step beyond the screen. Join and help light the way for others. The world, overrun with copies and echoes, rarely encounters such unmasked vitality. So when it appears, it disrupts the predictable rhythm people have lulled themselves into. It doesn't strive to persuade, doesn't dilute its edges to blend in, doesn't perform for applause. And because of that, it can feel like a sudden jolt, reminding others of what they've lost by hiding inside routines and disguises. Reactions vary. Some feel an inexplicable pull, others an instinctive resistance, and some can only stand still, inexplicably moved, without understanding why. But the effect remains undeniable. Something ancient and alive stands before them, impossible to dismiss, impossible to duplicate. It does not follow any script, because it is the script, unwritten yet unmistakable. Some forces carry an unsettling kind of stillness, the kind that silently disrupts the rehearsed rhythms of everyone around them. Without uttering a word or lifting a finger, they rearrange the air itself. A quiet intensity spreads, and even those too numb to notice feel something tighten in their chest. Not because of hostility, but because everything they've hidden behind begins to feel heavy in their presence. People spend their days clinging to predictable habits, camouflaged behind polite scripts and borrowed smiles, until someone arrives who does not follow the choreography. And then the illusion cracks. There is no effort to provoke, yet a quiet light cuts across the room, revealing the corners others have kept in shadow. This presence refuses to shrink to fit their comfort, refuses to blend into the monotony, and so it startles. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. Awkward glances, nervous laughter, or strange silence often follow. Not because of anything done wrong, but because this kind of energy leaves no place for pretense to hide. It casts no judgment but shines a strange clarity, reminding everyone that much of their life has been a delicate theater. Some try to retreat. Some are drawn closer, confused by their own curiosity. Either way, the effect remains. What they've buried begins to surface. This kind of spirit disturbs the quiet in a world addicted to dullness. Not with noise, but with a density, a depth that is impossible to ignore. It carries a kind of weight that lingers in the bones, and many can only bear it in fragments. Those who cannot face it will invent excuses to distance themselves, though they may never name the discomfort it awakens. It's not a question of being too much, but of others being unprepared to meet something unmasked. Those who are ready feel their own truth awaken in its presence. Others feel cornered by the mirror it holds up without trying. It does not soothe with flattery, nor does it roar with arrogance. It simply exists as itself, and that alone is a quiet confrontation. There are spirits that seem to move outside the edges of time itself, not confusing by nature, but impossible to categorize, as though they operate on laws no one else remembers. They don't fit into the neat compartments others have built, nor do they bother to speak the dialect of fleeting trends. Their compass is internal, and because of that, they defy prediction. There is an oldness in such a soul, not worn out but sharpened, like stone shaped by uncountable storms. It does not learn its wisdom from instruction or imitation. Instead, it carries fragments of lessons that feel older than memory. Lessons learned from walking through invisible fires long before anyone was watching. That is why nothing startles it. That is why it moves through chaos, as though it has been here before. This kind of depth unnerves people because it exposes how shallow their own anchors have been. It sees beneath words, senses the fracture before it's spoken aloud. Not because of arrogance, but because it knows what it has already endured, and fear has long stopped commanding it. When someone encounters such a presence, the hair at the nape of their neck rises, not out of fear, but because something inside them remembers what they have been ignoring. It feels like a faint echo of something that once belonged to them, now awakened by standing too close to what is real. Many call it strange, unknowable, even intimidating. But what they cannot name is the sense that this soul does not belong to the machinery of the world, that it slipped through the cracks of the system and chose to stay unchained. And that unsettles them because it reminds them that there is another way to live. Step beyond the screen. Join and help light the way for others. There is no blending into the noise, no playing along. It does not ask to be understood, yet it leaves an imprint impossible to forget. Something eternal hums beneath its surface, and those who brush against it are left forever aware that they have glimpsed something rare. Some beings do more than arrive. They alter everything around them without trying. Their entrance carries a quiet intensity that bends the entire mood of a room into something unfamiliar. Conversations hesitate, bodies adjust instinctively, and even the air feels thicker. Not because they make noise, but because they emanate something that demands acknowledgement. They aren't just filling a space, they're reshaping it, dismantling its invisible patterns. They don't sparkle or perform. They carry a kind of gravity that draws attention without asking for it. The energy they bring doesn't just coexist. It rewires the atmosphere to its own rhythm. People grow restless or strangely attentive, as though the usual disguises they wear are suddenly too obvious to keep holding up. This presence doesn't shine like a decorative light. It moves deeper, as though it quietly tilts the floor beneath everyone's feet. The environment doesn't quite know how to absorb it at first. That's why some stumble over their words, some withdraw behind false smiles, and others finally exhale as though they've been waiting for this exact feeling without realizing it. The ones clinging hardest to their illusions often react the most. They stiffen, overcompensate, or try to retreat. The ones more awake find themselves oddly calmed, relieved even, recognizing a resonance they thought they'd lost. It doesn't matter whether they understand what is happening. Their bodies already know, without lifting a hand. This kind of presence untangles the pretenses in others and calls forth something more raw. It isn't about overpowering or conquering anyone. It's simply that authenticity refuses to shrink, and everything else must adapt around it. Not out of arrogance, but out of inevitability, as if the truth itself has silently arrived and claimed its place. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. There are some who carry a rare kind of permission, not granted by people, but by something far older. What they have cannot be mimicked or taught, because it wasn't learned here. It emerges naturally, as though written into their very existence. They do not aim to leave an impression, they just do. Long after crossing paths, their presence lingers, like a faint mark that cannot be scrubbed away. Not because of anything they say or wear or do, but because they awaken something that has been asleep in others. What they radiate is beyond practiced charm or curated confidence. Those things can be polished, rehearsed, and performed. But what flows from them pierces past facades, bypasses thought, and touches what people rarely let themselves feel. That is why strangers confess things without meaning to. Why defenses crumble silently. Why even the proud feel momentarily unsteady in their presence. They are not here to gather connections or climb ladders. They are here to spark recognition. People either find themselves in their company or realize just how far they've drifted from who they once were. And this shift happens not because of persuasive words or deliberate actions, but simply because alignment speaks louder than noise. They move through the world as a quiet catalyst. Those around them try to explain it with shallow terms, confidence, charm, a certain vibe, but none of those capture what it really is. It is more like being touched by something that doesn't belong to this place, something timeless that reminds others what it feels like to belong to themselves again. Wherever they go, they leave behind an echo, a faint trace of something unmistakable and unshakable, not because of status or strategy, but because their essence itself is a phenomenon. A rare event that shifts everything without even trying. There are people who awaken memories in others that had been quietly buried under years of dust. Without needing to speak or explain, they stir something dormant, a spark of courage, of possibility, of self, that others thought they had left behind for good, not through grand gestures or impressive feats, but simply through the way they exist. Around them, forgotten ambitions begin to whisper again. Old visions, long dismissed as impossible, start to flicker at the edges of consciousness. They don't bring comfort. They bring a subtle kind of restlessness that unsettles those who have chosen to settle. Watching them continue to move forward despite setbacks creates an ache, an uncomfortable reminder of the dreams that were once alive in the observer too. For some, this becomes motivation, a gentle reassurance that all is not lost, that the flame inside can still be coaxed back to life. For others, it feels more like salt in a wound, exposing what they chose to abandon. The sight of someone embodying what they once believed they could be can feel like an unspoken challenge, and some react with admiration, while others react with bitterness they can't quite name. It's not jealousy in the obvious sense. It's deeper, more personal. It's the quiet shame of recognizing that they gave up before they had to, while another kept going. This presence becomes the mirror they'd rather not face, reflecting both the path they could have walked and the excuses that kept them still. Without trying to prove anything, they ignite a tension that makes people question the stories they've told themselves about why they stopped. And that's why reactions are so polarized. They become a catalyst for either renewal or resentment. But no one remains untouched. Even the ones who look away carry the faint trace of that awakening, unsure whether to hate it or hold on to it. Some arrive in people's lives carrying an uncomfortable kind of clarity. They do not set out to reveal anything, but their mere presence pulls hidden truths into the open. People feel exposed without knowing why, as though the mask they've worn for years has suddenly grown transparent. They don't accuse, don't pry, don't demand confessions, yet something about them dismantles the stories others tell about themselves. Unspoken regrets, quiet cravings, long-suppressed truths rise to the surface in their company. It's not intentional. It's simply what happens when authenticity meets pretense. Being near them is like standing before a reflection that refuses to flatter. It doesn't soften edges or blur contradictions. It shows the raw reality beneath all the layers, and that sight can be disorienting. People become fidgety, their smiles strain, their words falter. They sense that what they project no longer shields them. Some are drawn closer by this honesty, eager to finally face themselves. Others retreat behind defensiveness, their discomfort leaking out as irritation, dismissiveness, or sudden silence. This polarity doesn't come from anything being imposed. It comes from the quiet realization that they've been seen in ways they can't control. What's most unsettling is that no one asks for this encounter, yet no one truly forgets it either. It doesn't flatter or console, but it wakes something they thought they had buried beyond reach. And that is why some feel unsettled, even trembling, without understanding why. Their body reacts before their mind catches up, sensing that the familiar illusions no longer hold. This kind of presence doesn't come to soothe or entertain. It comes to strip away what isn't real and invite what has always been waiting underneath to finally emerge. There are certain souls whose strength seems to radiate from somewhere far below the surface, impossible to trace to any single trait. It's not their clothes, their voice, or their presence in the usual sense. What resonates is the quiet force of someone who has endured and refused to disappear. People cannot articulate it, yet they feel it. A kind of weight that lingers, not heavy, but undeniable. This is what survival feels like when worn with grace. No one sees the nights when they broke apart only to put themselves back together before dawn. But everyone feels the resolve that remains. The kind of power they carry does not come from approval or applause. It was carved out of disappointment, loneliness, betrayal. And yet, instead of breaking them, it refined them. That glow others notice is not superficial. It is what emerges when suffering is not wasted but transformed. There's a solidity in their presence, an unshakable quality that leaves people both curious and unsettled. Not because they flaunt anything, but because their very being whispers of something conquered, of storms faced and survived without surrendering. For those still tangled in their own wounds, this can feel sharp, even uncomfortable, a reminder of what is possible and what they've been avoiding. But for those ready to grow, it's a quiet beacon. Their life is evidence. Pain does not have the final word. Strength is not born in comfort, but in persistence. That subtle hush in the room when they arrive, the way others pause without knowing why. It's the body recognizing a survivor before the mind can explain it. Not fragile, not boastful, forged. And what has been forged carries a power no charm can imitate. There are those who don't need to speak for their essence to ripple outward. Every room they enter seems to wake up, as if something invisible has shifted. Even before a word is spoken, the atmosphere bends toward them, though no one can name why. It's not about appearance or presence in the usual sense. It's something much deeper. Their spirit moves first, speaking on frequencies no human language can capture. Without trying, they stir something unseen. Some mistake the sensation for unease. Others feel a sudden clarity, as though something long dormant has been touched. This kind of energy does not sit quietly. It hums at a pitch that either aligns or disorients everyone it meets. It is not soft or polite. It provokes and exposes, unmasking what prefers to stay hidden. For some, it feels like standing next to a storm contained in a single body, not threatening but undeniably alive. Others shrink back instinctively, feeling exposed, sensing that their usual facades no longer hold. This is not a personality trait, but something far more ancient, a current running through them that carries the weight of something beyond sight. They are not here to soothe or entertain. They unsettle what clings to falsehood and invite what is real to emerge. That kind of presence cannot go unnoticed. People flinch or lean closer, whisper or stare, but no one remains unaffected. The air thickens around them because they carry a kind of authority that doesn't need permission. Even those who resist can feel it pressing against their skin, forcing recognition of what they've buried. What they carry is not charm. It is an unspoken command that silences the irrelevant and calls forth what matters. The reaction it stirs is not personal but inevitable. It is what happens when the truth steps quietly into the room and dares everything else to be seen. There are those who carry an unsettling kind of clarity, one that does not need approval to exist, yet forces others to examine themselves. They are not here to argue or persuade. They don't reach for validation because their presence alone demands it. Not through noise, but through quiet conviction. Without speaking, They unsettle illusions and make the air feel heavier, as though invisible hands are pulling back curtains no one wanted opened. They don't seek to fit into others' expectations or chase shallow acceptance. That's not their role. What they awaken is far more disruptive, a recognition that runs beneath the surface. People sense it before they realize it. A prickling in their thoughts, a sudden discomfort in their chest, the nagging feeling that something inside needs to be addressed. This is not admiration, and it is not envy. It is the raw friction of someone who refuses to dilute themselves simply to be palatable. They never need to deliver hard truths directly. They embody them. Being near them stirs up old questions people have buried, old lies they've clung to for comfort, and even the stories they've told themselves about who they are. The silence of such a person becomes deafening because it demands introspection without permission. Some lean into that discomfort and allow it to become fuel. Others retreat, unsettled by the sight of someone unafraid to stand fully in themselves. Both responses are expected. Both mean that the encounter worked. What makes them powerful is not being universally liked, but being impossible to ignore. They are not here to soothe the world into complacency. They are here to rattle it awake. And for anyone who crosses their path, the choice is simple: look away or look inward. But either way, the reflection they provoke lingers long after they're gone. Some people are impossible to forget, not because they demand attention, but because they disrupt what you thought you knew about possibility. They are not copies of anyone else, not echoes of the familiar. They move like a question no one has yet answered, where others recycle ideas and mimic what feels safe. They arrive as something untamed, something that does not fit into the patterns you've grown used to. You cannot place them in a category because they carry a rhythm entirely their own, and that rhythm does not follow anyone else's song. They bring with them a kind of presence that colors everything differently, like finding a new shade in a world you thought you'd already seen completely. People feel it, even if they cannot explain it, the quiet realization that they are encountering something rare.